I think I failed the AZ900 probably about 4 times. Hey, what's up everyone? New to Microsoft 365 is back with another video. There's a few of you who have sent in some questions, so I decided to make a get to know me video. I haven't checked the questions yet, so hopefully there's going to be some interesting stuff. And if you do have any more questions, then just comment down below. Without further ado, let's get the ball rolling. I've got the first question here and it says, what is your job title? Right, so my job title is Microsoft 365 consultant. I've been a Microsoft 365 consultant for just about 3 months now, as I used to be a Microsoft engineer just before, and I did that for about 2 years. All right, the second question says, what got you into the M365 or cloud space? Oh, that's an interesting question. I'd say a few things got me into the M365 and cloud space. So one of them was actually working at Microsoft and being able to, be within the company and see the technology itself. People are talking about this new thing called the cloud, called Azure, and I'm like, what is that? So I was interested to find out more about Azure, more about the cloud, more about M365, but I just didn't really know where to go. So I had a friend of mine who basically introduced me to certifications and showed me the learning paths that I could do on Microsoft Learn. And that's what kind of started the curiosity of being able to understand what the cloud even is, why is it important, companies moving over to it. I think another reason was I did a computing networking degree and I started to realize that maybe I didn't want to be a networking engineer. Now don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that I don't love networking, but I just think being a network engineer didn't excite me as much, just like how being a software developer or software engineer didn't excite me at all. So I think all of those things were kind of like the driving force to be curious and get into cloud basically. Okay, so the next question says, what don't you like about M365? Okay, I think the one thing that I don't like about M365 is the license names. They're always changing the name of licenses, from one thing to another. I mean, pretty much I've just gotten used to Entra ID just after, saying Azure AD for however long. Yeah, and I think licensing in itself can be kind of confusing to understand at first, especially when it comes to the pricing, especially when it comes to what's included in the different licenses. And those licenses pretty much determine what you get to do within your Microsoft 365 tenant. So I think I don't only speak for me. I think there's a lot of people that don't like Microsoft licensing, especially in the beginning when it came to Copilot. But yeah, licensing. Okay, so the next question is if I've failed any exams. Oh, have I failed any exams? I think most engineers or consultants, people in tech, have at least failed 1 or 2 exams. I think how many times did I fail the AZ900? I think I failed the AZ900 probably about 4 times. Yeah, I think it's about 4 times. Now you may be shocked. What? A Microsoft 365 consultant or engineer has failed the AZ900 4 times? Yeah, I know. Yeah, so you're probably wondering why you can't hear any sound from the video. So basically I forgot to charge my microphone and it died while I was recording. So I had to go charge it again. Typical life of a content creator. But anyways, we move. So the camera angle might be a little bit different. Just as a heads up, I accidentally bumped my camera stand, so I had to fiddle around with my camera. And we are live in 3, 2, 1. Okay, the next question is, if you were to have only one certification, a Microsoft certification, which one would it be? Okay, so for those of you who watch my channel, watch my videos, you already know what I'm gonna say. It's gonna have to be the SC300, the Identity and Access Administrator. Now, I could have said the MS500, but at the end of the day, it's retired. And I think that is an exam or certification that is quite broad. It's very broad in terms of what you can configure within the Microsoft 365 cloud. For me, it was quite difficult to do, just for specifically that reason, for it being very broad, if that makes sense. I do believe SC300 is broad enough where you get to understand how to configure a few of the different products and services throughout Microsoft 365. But I also think it helps you build enough knowledge and understanding where you would be able to go into the working world with some experience, with some hands-on labs or some time practicing in either a trial license like the Microsoft 365 Business Premium. It will be good for actual working knowledge, being able to configure and secure Microsoft 365 Cloud. So if you do want to become a Microsoft 365 engineer or Microsoft 365 consultant, this would be the exam that I would suggest for you to do. So yeah. All right, so the next question is, did I have any mentors, or do I have any mentors? I don't know for others that I've been on this journey, but I haven't actually had any mentors. I've kind of went on this journey, on my own individually. I guess the only thing that I could say that is close enough to, let's say, per se a mentor or mentors, is when I decided to create a separate TikTok from my personal TikTok and decided to follow all sorts of different tech creators within different disciplines and industries. And that helped me get an understanding of the landscape within tech, because tech is a very big term. It's like saying, I want to get into cybersecurity. There's so many different types of roles and areas within cybersecurity. So number one, it allowed me to be able to focus my social media feed, at least on that account, to basically mainly only have tech content come to me basically. Because at the time I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do per se. And I wanted to get an understanding of all the different types of roles within tech. So I followed data analysts, data engineers, software developers, cloud engineers, DevOps, IT support, project managers, you name it, I followed them. It's also a good way to get a lot of CV tips, LinkedIn tips when it comes to interviews, how to approach them. I know some of you won't have someone who is a mentor to you or someone that you can speak to. So this would be my advice. Create a separate TikTok, separate Instagram, separate YouTube, whatever social media that you use, and then find tech creators and follow them. Understand what they do, take on board their advice, tips and tricks. I guess do your research, do your due diligence. But to answer the question, just simply, no, I've never had a mentor. I like this question. So what is my favorite Microsoft service / product that I like to use or configure? I would say I think my favorite one would be, conditional access policies. Some of you may be thinking like, what is a conditional access policy? So conditional access policies are policies within Microsoft 365 that dictate the access of users, identities, groups based on conditions that you set within the policy. Back when I was a Microsoft 365 engineer, I had quite a few of these type of projects where a client would come to me and they would want some conditional access policy set up depending on who they want access to what and where they want them to have access from. So for example, it could be like, we want the marketing team to only have access to SharePoint Online when they're in the office. We don't want them to have access to SharePoint Online when they're at home or outside of the office. So I'll go into Entra ID, used to be called Azure AD, and configure the conditional access policies in there. You can also create policies where only compliant devices can be able to access Microsoft 365 cloud resources. So there's a lot of different stuff that you can do in there when it comes to access. I find it really fun. I guess playing with people's access. I'm joking, of course. But yeah, those type of projects were nice, quick, easy, and fun. And I've gotten to a point where I can create quite complex conditional access policies depending on the client's requirements. So yeah, I would say that's my favorite one, conditional access policies. Okay, and the last question is, what is one thing that you didn't know about when you became a Microsoft 365 consultant? Okay, so there's one thing that I would say I didn't know about when I became a Microsoft 365 consultant. So when you're doing consultancy, there is this thing called the bench. Now, for any of those who are football fans, you kind of already understand where I'm going with this when I mention the bench. In football, the bench is normally referred to as, you know, players who are not playing any matches, but they're being paid to essentially sit on the bench. They'll do training, they're still part of the team, but essentially, yeah, they're being paid to just sit on the bench. And it kind of works the same way in consultancy. So essentially you can have colleagues that are not basically working on any projects, and that could be for many different reasons. Maybe their skill set that they have is not well suited for any of the projects that are going on now. Maybe at the moment there's no projects to do. And normally in this time, what you would do is focus on, you know, learning, focus on upskilling. So that would be, you know, taking certifications, doing courses. Sometimes, depending on the company, you can work on your own thing, like your own project. And then later on, when it's completed, you can basically showcase it to the team. And it may even be added as one of the services that your company now offers to other companies. But yeah, I'd say the bench. Well, that's all the questions done. I hope that you've gotten to know me a little bit more. Gotten to know a little bit more of what I like, what I don't like, my thoughts and opinions on things. Hopefully you've learned a thing or two from this video. Please like, share and subscribe, as I'll be coming out with a lot more videos on what I do as a Microsoft 365 engineer, consultant, how I got into tech and, you know, got my first cloud role as a Microsoft 365 engineer, tips and tricks on CVs, on LinkedIn, on interviews. So I've got a lot of things coming up. Just watch this space.